Well, right now we are in the midst of the flu season, and as of earlier this month, the CDC was considering the virus's activity in our state very high. This morning, 9 News medical expert Dr. Payal Kohli is joining us. Thank you so much for being here. Can you just start off with a little bit of a snapshot of what our cases are doing now and how it's comparing to previous years?
It's very similar to what we've seen in the past. In fact, we've had 14 million cases so far, and almost 10,000 people have died from the flu this season. And so very much a similar pattern. And what we're seeing in January is what we expect to see after the holidays, a little bit of a dip. And that's mainly because kids are out of school. A lot of people don't go to the doctor's office over the holidays, but it doesn't mean the flu season is done. In fact, we generally see a second peak sort of occurring in February or March, which is what's expected this year as well.
I think our viewers remember us talking to you a lot that one year about the triple-demic when we had COVID, flu, RSV all happening at the same time. Is that still the case? Can you still get all of those?
Yes. In fact, we just had a case recently of a young man who passed away from getting flu A and flu B together. And so not only can you get multiple viruses, you can get different versions of the same virus as well. So because viral activity is so high this season, I think it's really very critical for us to start to protect ourselves, because if you get co-infected, as we call it, then your body kind of goes to war against both those viruses. And even young, healthy people can end up in the intensive care unit.
That's a lot. That's a lot to be fighting off at once. What can you tell us about the effectiveness of the vaccine this year?
You know, it's been much better than previous years. So what we're seeing from data out of Canada is that the vaccine's more than 60% effective against influenza A, which is the primary circulating strain. But here's the kicker. It's only effective if you get it, right?
Well, yeah, right. Yes,
Right.
makes sense.
And less than half of Americans have gotten the flu vaccine this year, and only 10 to 20% of adults and kids have gotten the COVID vaccine. So we're talking about this vaccine apathy, and we've talked about it for some time, but it's really not too late to get it, because it is working, it is going to protect you, and it's a pretty bad flu season this year.
Yeah, I went ahead and I got mine early. Now, a question that we always ask, though, is I believe I got mine in September, around that time. Do we need to look at getting a second flu vaccine?
So most adults probably not. If you get it that early September, you will start to get a little unprotected later in the season, probably March or April.
Okay.
Some young kids who've only gotten flu vaccine for the first time, they may need to actually get 2 shots within the same season. But if you haven't gotten it at all, it's not too late to get it now. It starts to kick in protection in about 2 weeks. And even though it's late in the season, we're just about halfway through. So we still have half the mountain to climb ahead of us.
I feel like a lot of people sometimes, like you were talking about with vaccine apathy, is about how do I make this as convenient as possible? You can get the COVID and the flu vaccine together, right?
You can. In seniors, there's been a small signal of increased risk of stroke with the Pfizer COVID vaccines. You want to be a little careful. And if you're concerned, maybe talk to your doctor.
Right.
But for most adults, you can absolutely get them together, and it shouldn't affect the efficacy, meaning how good your response is, or the safety significantly.
Remind us of signs and symptoms and what we should be on the lookout for, especially with kids, so we can avoid hospitalization.
You know, the first thing I would say is look at not just the symptoms, but the trajectory of the symptoms. So if things are progressing quickly, don't just say, oh yeah, this is how it works. If you're getting very ill, your fever is going really high, you're getting dehydrated, your urine output goes down, and you're starting to have shaking, chills, or anything like that, then certainly reach out to your doctor, because with the flu, there is a medication you can take, an antiviral. It's called Tamiflu, that can help to resolve the symptoms faster and make you less infectious as well. So don't just tough it out. Make sure to look out for those. And in our kids, especially with the way that A and B activity are this year, we want to make sure to look out for those signs. If they're not feeding at all, if they're really, not responsive or sleeping too much, those are all signs that you need to call your pediatrician.
Trust me, I don't tough anything out. I got man flu over here. The second sign of it. You know how that goes. It's so much worse for. I feel like women are a lot stronger than we are.
The breath check for the kiddos is what the doctors have always told us too. So that's always,
Thank
good
you,
advice.
Dr. Kohli. Not out of the woods just yet, so everybody please be safe out there. We appreciate your time. By the way, you can also find all of Dr. Kohli's appearances at 9news.com/Dr. Kohli. Let's get